that I did not make it to the finals or did not win a championship has been a disappointment. So it'd be the same for me, you know. It'd be the same off season of disappointment and unfulfillment, you know, have an opportunity, you know, to play longer and give yourself an opportunity to play for the Larry O'Brien Trophy. So nothing changes for me.
I think I didn't play the way I should. I think as a team we didn't play the way we could. But I think congratulations to Minnesota. They played hell of a series. They were the better team, honestly.
Of that, there is no question. The games generally were close, but when they were decided, Minnesota dominated in the ways that really matter. Again, Big Perk and Jay Will and Big is there, and D Wood is here, and the legend Michael Wilbon is with us. So, Michael, we start with you. For the audience joining us here at the top of a brand new hour, there's been a lot of criticism of J.J. Redick on the show so far this morning and over the last few days since the way he coached Game 4. I guess I would ask you, how much of the responsibility does he deserve for their season ending last night? And was there anything he could have done with his roster that you think wins this series?
Well, Greeny, as you pointed out, as we've talked about J.J. Redick specifically and coaching in general, that's why they get paid the money they get paid now. I mean, this is not a guy with a whistle at a high school gym. J.J. Redick knows what's at stake. It's fair. Second guessing of coaches? I mean, you know, I'm the only one who hasn't had to live through that on the inside, as my colleagues on with us this morning have had to live with that, with even great coaches being second guessed. And yes, it's fair. And J.J. Redick took some calculated gambles. Calculated. I certainly didn't agree. I was stunned last night that he didn't go at some point to Jackson Hayes, because you got Rudy Gobert having a game he's never had in his life. You got Rudy Gobert taking every offensive rebound and throwing it down, and you're like, my goodness, is there some counter to this? I know the Lakers weren't built with that trade to win this year. I don't want to, when I say the roster's flawed, I don't want to make it seem like it's a criticism of Rob Pelinka, because it isn't. Because he got Luka Doncic and is set to now pursue and build a team that's going to vie seriously for years. But, you know, did they have enough to extend this series? Probably not. You still want to see J.J. Redick make different decisions, but should they have been favored over Minnesota? No. If the Golden State Warriors win their series, they're going to have some of the same problems that they play against the Wolves. Bad matchup, as Perk talked about, with size and athleticism, which size, if you think the Lakers are size challenged, how about Draymond at 6'5", having to deal with Rudy Gobert, who's like a foot taller, in a series that could be coming? So there's so many elements, Greeny. I know I'm going too long, but J.J. Redick's part of what he's part of what happened this week, not all of it. They'll get better, but they were not going to beat Minnesota. If we look at this again, we go back and look at just the pure basketball matchup, the Lakers were at a disadvantage when this series started.
So the way that they could have won, what sort of sucked us all in, what was tantalizing, were the possibilities, Big Perk, that LeBron turns back the clock and that Luka plays like he did in the Western Conference playoffs a year ago. And those things, for the most part, didn't happen. LeBron played great, candidly, and just ran out of gas in the fourth quarters of some of these games. Luka had his moments. The Game 3 was a disaster last night with the back. What do you point your finger at, Big Perk, this morning as the reason that the Lakers season ended last night?
Well, one coming into this series, I picked the Lakers in 7 because I was, afraid of the Timberwolves and the problems that they may pose towards the Lakers. That's number one. Number two, coming into this series, I believe that the Lakers had 3 out of the top 5 players in this series, with LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and the way that Austin Reeves have been balling. Right, Austin Reeves career high this season, averaging 25 and 4, okay? So I'm like, okay, this is why I'm going to give a slight edge, because they have a legit big 3. This is what everyone's been saying, like anointing Austin Reeves and praising how great this contract is and his value, and this is why Rob Pelinka don't want to, get rid of him. And then all of a sudden I got to thinking this morning about Mind the Game. Y'all remember that podcast last year? Mind the Game, where LeBron James and J.J. Redick joined forces to actually educate the basketball world and appreciate the game of basketball how it should be, because us talking heads don't really know the game. Okay, cool. So you two experts on the same team, one is the head coach, one is the leader, and you mean to tell me since game one, y'all didn't make a single adjustment, not one adjustment. Y'all came out with the same zone, the same trap. Anthony Edwards figured that out. You came out with a game plan offensively. Let's pick on Rudy on the offensive end, and let's attack him. That didn't work. They shot 28% for the series against Rudy with him sliding his feet on the perimeter. And then all of a sudden you're getting punished in the paint, and you make no adjustments. You don't think the starter, Jared Vanderbilt, 6'9", 6'10", high motor, try Jackson Hayes, throw him out there just to see if he could grab 5 rebounds last night to stop Rudy from having 7 or 8. No adjustments whatsoever. I'm pointing the finger at J.J. Redick on this. He lost this series. It's the reason they lost in 5.
Jay Will.
KP, how long did Nate McMillan coach in the NBA, head coach?
It's been a while.
2 decades as a head coach.
Yeah.
Scott Brooks.
Yeah.
Coached multiple teams.
So you're saying those are his assistants? Yeah.
And by the way, he leans upon his assistants a ton. So it's not just J.J. Redick. There's a lot of experience on that bench.
I get it, but Jay, we never talk about guys' assistants, right? I mean, the head coaches are the head coaches, and they wear the decisions. They all do these things in union with their assistants.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there's no accountability on J.J. Redick, but to sit here and say that there were 0 schemes that were implemented, like, that's wrong. Like, there were a lot of schemes that were implemented. Now, executing the schemes are 2 different things. And I don't think they executed any of the schemes. And I also think, due to the way Mike Wilbon said, I think personnel-wise, this was a horrible matchup for them. Right. And where they got punished. And I think they tried to go about it in different ways. But at the end of the day, when you don't have athleticism on the perimeter, okay, and you can't defend, what line did you use for Luka Doncic defensively? A swinging gate? When you have that as an issue, right? And by the way, it's been bad for Luka. Like I said before you even got to the first TV timeout, he was targeted 6 times, and they blew by him. Either they scored or it was a blow by, okay? So these are challenges that the Lakers had, and they had lack of height. I hear everybody talking about Jackson Hayes. He got demolished in game 1. I'm not sure Jackson Hayes picks up an 18 offensive rebounding deficit. I'm sure maybe he makes it 13. Maybe he makes it 12. I'm not sure he's the defining difference between the Lakers winning that game or not.
So we have Damian Woody with us today.
They were a better team.
You know why he's the defining?
Go ahead, Big Perk.
You know why he's the defining difference, Jay Will? It's because he takes the load off of LeBron James. Again, you're talking about a guy who had to be in the trenches tangling and wrestling with those big fellas on the defensive end because he had to play the center position the entire series. I know, Jay, you played the point guard. You did a hell of a job. One of the college all-time greats.
You're building me up and breaking me down.
You know, and all that. But in them trenches, no, I'm not. But in them trenches, when you down there wrestling and throwing elbows, you exhaust a different type of energy. And that's the energy we saw LeBron James have to exhaust. This is why I'm saying you could have used Jackson Hayes to take that pressure off of LeBron James. That's it.
LeBron was asked about this last night. Let's play that sound. Cindy, tell me when you have it. LeBron was asked about having to essentially play center in this series, and his answer is getting a lot of attention. If you just read the words, they feel a little different than I think they sound when he says them. This was what LeBron said.
No comment. I'll never say that because my guy AD said what he needed, and then he was gone the following week. So I got no comment. I put that uniform on every night. I gave everything I had, and that's all that matters.
So, you know,
can I ask Mike Wilbon a question?
Yeah, please.
Mike, you've been around so many teams. Do you think when J.J. Redick and his staff were putting together the scheme on how they wanted to guard Minnesota, Do you think LeBron James was heavily involved in that strategy and scheme conversation? And how loud do you think his voice was as it resonates for how they actually wanted to execute it?
Had to be, Jay Will. That's a great point. And I'm glad you brought up, in this case, the assistants are important because, I mean, when you say Nate McMillan, I mean, you're talking about a guy who, played on championship level teams and coached teams that got close. So they are important. The other thing, by the way, Greeny, to put it in context, I was in that room last night. LeBron was trying to lighten the mood and lighten the moment. That's it. Right. That's all. When he answered that question, it was a perfect tone. Said LeBron. Nobody in sports is better than LeBron in post-game situations, in part because he's got a near photographic memory. He can recall every single thing that happened, and he knows how to control the room, and he did, and I thought that was a great touch he put on in a tense moment. And there was no answer to that. He couldn't do it. They did get rid of Anthony Davis right after that. And there's irony, and you had to chuckle when you heard it live and even when you see it replayed. But Jay Will, to your point, of course LeBron was involved. That's why I'm going back. Perk, I texted Perk the other day because he made me change my mind based on something he said going into the series. And I, too, picked the Lakers in 7 because, Perk, like you, I was scared to pick Minnesota, even though that's probably what I thought. Doing the same thing now with the Knicks and Pistons. I picked the Knicks in 7. I don't know that I believe that anymore. But to confine it to the Laker discussion, they knew they were challenged. They knew this is a tough matchup. No, they're not going to come out and say it publicly beforehand, nor should they. But, of course, LeBron was involved in that. And, Perk, you were so right about him wrestling. He was tired late in those games. LeBron, I think you mentioned this stat. This is when I texted you. LeBron was shooting like 61% and averaging 17 points in first halves of these games and was down to like 36% and 7 or 8 points in the second halves of these games. That's not a coincidence. He is down there wrestling with those guys at this stage. And it's too much. They're too big. They're too long. They're too athletic. And they're too young. And all of that goes into this. Did J.J. Redick help him in ways that we thought? No, but I don't know that I'm not going as far as Perk, but I understand the criticism. I get it. I want to see Jackson Hayes, Jay Will, just for a few possessions. I'm not saying he was the answer. But can we get him for 5 or 6 possessions? Can he slow Rudy Gobert down for 5 minutes? 3 possessions changed the game. The Lakers led by a point. Maybe they led by no more than 3. But when you're in that kind of tussle, if you can get help for 6 minutes, 5 possessions defensively, maybe it changes it, maybe.
That's fair. And I think if you look back on this series in the aftermath, Game 4 was what really decided it. Game 4 was there for the taking. The Lakers have the lead in the fourth quarter on the road with a chance to put themselves back in control of the series. They're unable to do it, and Jackson Hayes and Jared Vanderbilt and all those guys did not ever get off the bench in the second half. So we have the voice of Laker Nation with us this morning, and that's Damian Woody speaking on behalf of the Laker fans. And is it pure frustration today? How would you describe the way the Laker fan feels after having had it built up to some degree? I think there were credible people, regardless of what anyone is going to say now, credible people came on this show and others and said the Lakers have a real chance to make a deep run in the Western Conference. They weren't saying that for ratings. They weren't saying that to try and get attention. They were saying it because they believed it. So now that it didn't happen, what is your reaction?
Yeah, listen, first of all, just, again, a lot of the bravado from myself and a lot of Laker people is from how they perform post-trade coming down the stretch. You saw the defensive energy in which they exuded, in those games down the stretch. To me, that's what gave me optimism coming into the playoffs. We know we got Luka, we got LeBron. Austin Reeves was scoring. So the offense wasn't the issue. Like, for me,